Hey everybody, it's Leslie Tagorda here, and I'm recording this just after the new moon in Taurus. I hope you all had a beautiful time with your ritual. Please excuse any background noise. There is construction going on right outside my door, and this is the only time that I'm able to record with my schedule with my son at home. So we're going to do what we're going to do. So before we get started, I wanted to ask you for your help. So if you found this podcast valuable, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and leaving a rating and a review. So iTunes is kind of tricky because you have to go to the homepage of the episode on iTunes and then scroll all the way down on your phone before you can rate. I don't know why they make it so difficult, but when you rate and review, all of the other podcast players looks at iTunes for their algorithms. And when you rate and review, this just shows iTunes that other people love this podcast, and it will continue to share my podcast when people search for astrology. So I would love it if you could hop on over to iTunes and give me a great rating and review. And I wanted to share the latest review from Adriana Locke. I think she's in Oregon, and she gave me a 5-star review that says, "Business is always full of ups and downs, and I love checking in with this podcast for regular encouragement according to the stars. I value letting spirit guide my way in business and life, and Leslie speaks right to the heart of it with ritual and astrological insight. What a gift." Thank you so much, Adriana. We'll be sending you a special gift shortly. So watch out for an email from us so we can get your address so we can send you a Savvy Luminary gift bag. And if you want your own gift bag, again, please just head over to iTunes and leave us a great rating and review. If you listened to my episode last week on the new moon in Taurus, you might have heard that I had a new moon masterclass. It was so awesome. It was my first masterclass of 2020. I hadn't had one since 2019. And we had so many people from all around the world. We had people from Brisbane, Australia. We had people from the UK, from Ireland, Canada, the United States. I am so delighted to get to have met all of you. And during our new moon masterclass, I gifted 5 mini readings during the masterclass. And the thing that I was hearing everybody say during the masterclass is that they also wanted to learn how to navigate their own charts so that they could read it for their own business. So I heard you. What I'm going to be doing over the next week is I am creating a challenge so that you can learn to read your natal chart from a business and branding perspective. So if you head over to thesavvyluminary.com/challenge, again, thesavvyluminary.com/challenge, get signed up so that you can learn how to create, direct, and navigate your business chart. On the first day, we're going to be going over chart basics, so you get to know all of the pieces of your natal chart and how to read it. Day 2, we're going to be covering all of the zodiacs, how you can get familiar with all of the energies that want to come through. And day 3, we're going to be going through the houses, so you can get a holistic view on your business. And then we'll be closing the challenge with a masterclass on how to illuminate your brand using astrology. This live online masterclass will happen on May 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and I would love to have you there. Go to thesavvyluminary.com/challenge, get on the list, and we'll be sending you information for when it starts up very soon. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking with Kim Strobel, happiness coach and nationally recognized speaker. It's so appropriate for us to talk with her during this time because even though I'm normally optimistic, I have definitely been struggling with finding the joys with this extended shelter in place. The reality of, the lines blurring between live-work balance have really taken a toll on me, even though I know that in all respects, I have a very easy time with this lockdown. But because we're in Taurus season, right, we are here to search for and savor the pleasures in our lives. And these pleasures help us connect with joy and happiness, especially when things feel uncertain. So, we're going to be talking with Kim, and we're going to listen to her journey from teacher to education consultant to happiness coach, because Kim has expanded her capacity and her capabilities by purely chasing joy. I hope that her story inspires you. And then catch the end of the episode, because we will definitely be covering the astrological highlights for the week of April 26th through May 4th. So I can't wait for you to listen to her talk and share her journey from anxiety stricken to motivational speaker, and how you too can choose joy. Well, hello. We have Kim Strobel here today. Kim and I met a couple of years ago. We were in the same mastermind where we were learning to turn our businesses around and to reach more people. So, hello, Kim. Will you introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Leslie. It's hard to believe that's been a couple of years ago, because I know we've both been working so hard to launch these businesses and put them out into the world. So I'm a former school teacher. I taught fourth grade for several years. And then I became a literacy coordinator and a curriculum director. And then I had this crazy idea that I wanted to launch my own education consulting business. And so I launched Strobel Education full-time in January of 2016. And I turned that into like a motivational speaking business as well. And then I had another idea in 2017 that I wanted to birth the happiness coaching business, because I've studied the topic of happiness for about 20 years, and how do we really overcome hard things in our life and create those moments of joy and happiness, and what kind of habits contribute to that. And so I feel really called to help women kind of rise up and step into what I call the arena of bigness, which is just really becoming more of who they are really meant to be.
I love that arena of bigness, because, well, my podcast is about showing up to be visible in your brands. So how did you end up kind of transitioning from a teacher to this onstage presence, teaching other people how to be happy? Like what was that bigness quotient for you?
I think that I feel like there were always two Kims. So there was the Kim that I was supposed to be out in the world, and she was supposed to walk a certain path and act a certain way and dress a certain way in order to be accepted by everyone. And then there was like the real Kim inside of me, who is silly and goofy and real, and likes to just and maybe loud, and likes to show up and be seen. But I felt like I needed to play small in my life, because anytime I let the real Kim come out, it was like a group of haters would come at me and put me back in my place and tell me to stay in my lane. And so I just got so tired eventually of trying to be someone that I really wasn't, that I just decided to embrace the real Kim Strobel. And I saw myself really feeling called to be a leader. I saw that I was something I seemed to be good at. And the more I stepped into that role and the more my confidence grew, the more I started to let the naysayers fall to the wayside. And I have just found that the more that I let myself show up and be seen, the world gets way better stuff from me. And I'm much more aligned with how my soul wants to show up.
So I love that, so many parts of it, right? Because I mean, I heard the same things growing up, right? Like, don't be too loud, don't be too smart, don't get too much attention. And maybe our people were trying to protect us, but it didn't really protect us, right?
Yeah, no, and I live in a small town in the Midwest that has its gifts, but there's also a lot of small mindedness, right? And so when you are a female who has a strong desire to make an impact in the world, there will be people around you who try to put you in your place, who try to say, no, you stay in your lane and you stay in your corner because you're triggering me and I don't want to be triggered. You're making me look less than. So I need to put you back in your place. But I started to really let the seeds of my business idea be planted, and I began to work towards launching that.
That's wonderful. So so you overcame, right? You overcame all these naysayers, and that cannot be an easy process, right? What kept you motivated? What kept you planted your seeds, but what did you use to fertilize them so that you still went out and showed up?
I'm going to just do real talk with you. I think that over the years, I had been slammed and shamed and from everything. And so I think I was just one of those women, maybe, who was always kind of pushing against the grain. I had been beat down so many times that I finally just kind of said, screw it. You know what? I'm going to step into and show you all who I really am, and I'm going to let the real Kim Strobel come to the forefront. And not only that, but all of you haters and naysayers and those of you who tried to keep me small and keep me in my lane, well, honey, you just sit back and see what this girl can do. And so what I started to figure out, Leslie, was everything that I thought was wrong with me was actually everything that was right about me.
Yes.
And then I started to weave that into my brand. Like I started to take the real Kim Strobel and say, let's make sure that everything that gets put out there, from the design of my website to the pictures that are taken of me, they don't follow a script of what they're supposed to be. They follow the script of how Kim Strobel's soul wants to show up and be visible in the world.
Love that
And you
so
helped me
much.
with that. Like you looked at this like staged website from 2.5 years ago, and you were like, yeah, you were very kind. You're like, oh, it's very pretty and it's very, but she's like, it's not screaming the Kim Strobel that I know. And you know what? That's made all the difference in the world. Like when people go to strobeleducation.com or they go to kimstrobel.com, you can take one look at that website and be like, I think I know who this girl is.
I know that you're on social media, and I know that you have an epic podcast. And what has been kind of your journey with reach and visibility with your different platforms?
Okay, so one of the things that I found is if somebody would have looked at where my business is today, they would probably say, oh, it's taken her 10 or 15 years to get there, but it hasn't. I think that that is a limiting belief, is that we cannot be really big in our business until we've put in a certain amount of time. And I have found that not to be true, right? So my private Facebook, or sorry, my free Facebook group, which is called She Finds Joy, within a year, we have 2,700 people in there. And so like my reach, I became a nationally recognized motivational speaker within the first year and a half, because I just decided to go all in with who I am and how I want to show up, and to quit hiding those pieces of my soul from the world. And so, I launched Strobel Education. We started to do on-site professional development for schools. Then I decided I wanted to be a motivational speaker. So I slapped that title on there and started telling everybody that's what I do. And then I started getting hired out for these big school conferences to come in and be the keynote for maybe the science of happiness and how to put self-care and all of that back to the forefront of who we are. And then in my women's coaching world, it really was that I was seeing that so many people, so many women are really lost from who they really are, because they take on these roles of being a wife or being a mother or being a career person, that they lose their true identity, like who they are from the inside out. And they think that they're just supposed to give it all up for the time being. What happens is they lose their soul in that process. And so I just started doing real talk. I just started calling an ace and doing like this no BS podcast on She Finds Joy, and which is the title of it, and just saying like, hey, you don't have to ask your husband for permission. You have to have conversations with him, but you're not a child. You don't have to ask for permission. You're allowed to have time to yourself every day, even as a mother. You're allowed to listen to music and do all of the things that you loved doing before you were a mom. And what I found, Leslie, is people, and women especially, needed to hear that they had permission to do so.
That, yes, so much. As a mom, having felt all of those things, I hear you. Thank you for giving me permission. I what I'm taking away from what you just said there. First of all, I love your brand name for your podcast, She Finds Joy, because it's like, yes, you are finding it now, here and now. And I love that you were able to grow your brand visibility so quickly, right? You're saying,
Yes.
like, I decided that I was going to do this. Now, it also sounds like you have this really great kind of pipeline into growing your online platforms from speaking on stage and getting
Yes.
your face in front of a lot of people. Can you tell us
Yes.
a little about that path?
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest gifts that I have is my vulnerability. So, the reason I'm a happiness coach and the reason my podcast is called She Finds Joy is because I've been through some really difficult, traumatic things in my own life. And so, I suffered greatly from panic disorder, which very much limited my life for a long time. So, I struggled to drive my car to Walmart or Target. I struggled to walk to my mailbox. I struggled to feel safe in my own body, even as an adult. And so that is what really took me on the journey of trying to figure out, hey, how can I take responsibility for my own life within this challenge? And not only that, but how can I take this adversity or this challenge that is within me? And instead of playing victim to it, how can I rise up and be the warrior? How can I make meaning out of it? And how can I teach others? And so as I got on those stages, and I'm going through the presentation and I'm telling them a little bit about myself, but very quickly I start to share my struggle of darkness and how I was able to find my way through that pain point and create a business now that is centered around teaching others how to do just that. And so I really think it's my ability to be vulnerable and share my story with others that lets them see that they too can do this very same thing in their own life. And so the more that I continue to share my stories of darkness and vulnerability, and also just to call an ace, just to say, like, sometimes, Leslie, I don't like being a mom. Sometimes I don't, you know, sometimes I don't like being an entrepreneur. Sometimes I don't like being a wife. And like, I'm not any less of a person because of those things, even though some of those things are the greatest gifts in my life. Like, I'm just really tired of the BS that we tell ourselves. And so really being able to find and do that soul searching work on who is Kim Strobel at the deepest level of her soul. And then how do I take that shiny part of her soul and how do I make my business embody all of that? And for me, that was the pathway to creating even more success, is really not following what I'm supposed to be doing and what every practical strategy business coach tells me, but really doing that inner deep dive on who I am at the core of my being and how do I bring that into everything that I do.
Oh my gosh, Kim. No wonder there's so many energetic things about us that are so similar. And I just want to share, like, our paths, even though our paths are different, we've gone through so many similar obstacles, right? And what I want my listeners to hear is that the people that are shining the brightest right now, it's because they've chosen to. It wasn't just because they were put there. Right? It was because they worked through their shit. They called the ace the ace. They loved their vulnerabilities. They took all of their hurts and all of their wounds and worked through them and transmuted them into these beautiful gifts that give them the energy to shine brightly.
Yeah. And I always loved that quote that, like, the brightest stars are always seen in the darkest skies. Feeling completely defeated in my life as an adult because I couldn't do things that normal human beings could do, like stay at home by themselves or go to the grocery store. I mean, I felt completely flawed, completely broken, completely inadequate. And, I can still to this day feel the plush feel of the bath mat upon my cheek. And I pleaded with God because I did feel like I wanted him to take my life. I didn't think I could do it myself, but like I really wanted him to just take me out of this world so that I wouldn't have to endure any more suffering, because truly every 5 minutes of my life had been a struggle for a long time, and we didn't know what was wrong with me. We didn't have a diagnosis of panic disorder at the time. But then like there was this other feeling or voice or something that I heard while my cheek was on that bath mat that said, you are not done. Like you really are made for more in this life. So get up, put your big girl panties on, go figure out what the heck this is and get your life back in order. And so that's what I did, Leslie. I mean, I read every self-help book I could get a hold of, and I have done the deep work, and I still have to. I mean, I had a
Yeah.
relapse in 2018. I had a full panic attack relapse that, took me back a little bit. But the thing is, I'm allowed to step on that stage with 2,000 people in the crowd and be the badass that I am. And I'm also allowed to honor the fact that Kim Strobel has some vulnerabilities in her, some parts that maybe feel weak or scared at times, and that those are worth loving too. And that I'm no less of a human being because I have that struggle.
So, oh my gosh, I love that story so much. And like this, the journey and the dance with joy,
Oh,
right?
yes. Yes. The journey and the dance with joy. And that's what it is for me, and I'm constantly, I always tell people, you hear like, oh, Kim Strobel's a happiness coach. Well, I'm not like a unicorn with sparkly glitter all over me, Leslie. Like, I'm going to tell you that I wake up excited to live my life every damn day. I really do. But it doesn't mean that every day's easy. That I am a work in progress. And so we don't have to have it all figured out in order to teach others. I can be the happiness coach who had a big relapse a year and a half ago and struggled again to drive 5 minutes from her house. I can still teach you how to overcome hard things because I'm a practice in my own life of that particular thing. And so as women leaders, sometimes we think that we don't have it all together to even be able to put our brand and our business out into the world. But I actually think that you are allowed to, with all of your imperfections and so-called
Yes.
brokenness. It's probably screaming even more for you to put it out to the world because the world needs to hear your message.
Yes, your messy message, right? Because there's no such thing as perfect. So I do have a final question for you. So with all of this and with all of your journey and like showing up in your wonderful happy self that's not always so happy, what is one thing that you wished my audience would know about showing up?
It is worth taking the time to figure out what your brand is with someone like you, Leslie, because, you know, I spent 2 years trying to figure out who my avatar is and what is my brand and who am I really on the inside. And so just the work that I've done with you over the past 2 years, we had a reading. You helped me like try to go in and really get my website to really show and demonstrate who I was. But like I was just guessing at those things. Like I think this is the type of person that Kim Strobel works with. And I think this is the type of person she is on the inside, but I'm not really sure. But like whenever you're able to go in and kind of read the astrology that was specific to who my little teeny tiny soul was that came onto this earth on February 27th, 1974, it validates where and how I've been able to evolve my business now and where it needs to go next. And so I think that the work that you're doing is so important because you take the guesswork out of it. And so like when you do a reading with me, every single thing, I'm not trying to force myself to believe it. It's more like, oh my goodness, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to convey. That's exactly the message I'm trying to get out there. And so it's very validating, but then it helps me with my core messaging going forward.
So as we end our conversation, how can my listeners find you, and do you have any offer for them?
Yeah, so they can actually search on Facebook. It's called She Finds Joy, and it's my free Facebook group where I show up every week and I do little mini trainings on, it could be on happiness, it could be embracing our flossom, it could be overcoming a struggle, but it's really just a great place for like-minded women who really want to reach for more in their life, but they don't really know how. And then my podcast is the same title, She Finds Joy. And we have a podcast episode where I talk about these same things. And then, of course, my websites, kimstrobel.com and strobeleducation.com. So, yep, those are the places you can find me.
Great. And I'll have all of those links in the show notes for everyone. Well, thank you so much, Kim, for chatting with me today. I had such a lovely time talking with you.
You're welcome. I appreciate that you just created some space for us to do a little deep dive on my business and your expertise in astrology. I think this is really going to help me. So thank you for the gift of that.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. You're welcome. All right, talk soon. Mahalo for listening to this brand new podcast. If you enjoyed learning about astrology for entrepreneurs, help me spread the word by sharing this podcast with your business besties, and hop over to the Savvy Luminary for links to episode notes and our free Facebook community where you can send me questions about astrology or branding, as well as connect with other like-minded businesses.